Anthony Albanese continues to duck and weave on whether Australia would enforce International Criminal Court arrest warrants against top Israeli officials.
I'm not about to go into hypotheticals about things that have not happened. I don't respond to hypotheticals about court cases that haven't occurred. What we don't do is comment on court proceedings. That is standard procedure.
So basically, he's got nothing to say. The Prime Minister can't seem to find a position on this. Joining me now from Brisbane is Shadow Resources Minister Susan McDonald. Susan, good to see you. We seem to be no clearer as to what Australia's position is on this.
Oh, Danica, once again, the Prime Minister is failing at leadership. And it doesn't seem to matter whether it's an international matter, whether it's domestic. His weak leadership is once again on display. And I think Australians are feeling very concerned. You talked earlier about the cost of living. You know, they're looking to the Prime Minister to stand up, to provide strong leadership. And on this matter in particular, I was in Townsville speaking to a friend who works at a store in one of the shopping centres. She tells me that she's now telling her granddaughter, a boarder at one of the local boarding schools, not to disclose that she has Jewish heritage. What a tragedy this is. How outrageous that Australia, which has long been a country that people can come from all over the world to celebrate what's great about this country, to have a go, to be prosperous, they're now frightened to talk about where they're from, particularly if you're Jewish. This is a failure of the Prime Minister's, be very clear.
It's tragic, really, that Jewish people are feeling like this in such a beautiful country like ours. It's just appalling what it's come to. But look, let's move on to cost of living, because the Prime Minister, as you said, marked 2 years in office. He gave that speech in Western Sydney today. But this is what he said about the opposition.
We've seen what happens when the only test that politicians apply is their political self-interest. We saw it with the former PM, and we're seeing it with the current opposition leader. Saying no to everything is the easiest thing to do in opposition, but it builds nothing, it helps no one, and it takes our country nowhere.
Susan, what's your response to that?
What a ridiculous thing to say. What else are we to do but to point out that when the Prime Minister does make a plan, they're turning out to be very, very bad ones. I mean, Australians who have a mortgage are $35,000 worse off than they were when this man came to be the Prime Minister. They're paying more, whether it's the truckies tax for freight, whether it's the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity is up by 18%, the cost of gas is up by 25%. At every turn, Australians feel that they are, and they know that they're doing it tougher and they're doing it worse than when this government came to power. Every plan, whether it be the interventions into the gas market that's seen investment into this country plummet, whether it's how we are offshoring Australian jobs and Australian businesses. So, you know, I'm not surprised the Prime Minister's trying to reset himself in Western Sydney, because I can tell you that in regional Queensland, the people don't feel like they're connected to Labor at all anymore. It's not a party that reflects hard-working Australians. They're so disconnected. And I could give you a 1,000 examples. You know, we've now got the Farmers Federation, who are normally so collegiate, having to write to the Prime Minister and say, you have lost our confidence. Yeah. We don't think you're the best government for farming in this country. It's shocking.
No, it is shocking. Susan, we're almost out of time, but I just want to ask you about Eraring. The New South Wales government has signed a new deal to keep the power station open for a further 2 years. I mean, the fact that its life has been extended, what does this suggest in your view?
Well, it shows that this rush to renewables is failing, and Eraring is one of the 90% of baseload power providers that are due to come offline by 2034. This is obviously a failed policy. The extension means that the Greens, through their hardline approach to no new coal or gas, is actually resulting in more coal being burnt. I don't think that's a problem. Australia has very high quality coal and gas. We should be utilising that. But this is just another example of a failed Labor plan. and the rush is resulting in higher electricity prices, higher energy prices, and worse, we're now running the very real risk of blackouts and further job losses right across our economy, Danica.